Welcome to LSC, it's sports time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Carlos Campbell, former football player over at Phoebus High School and Hampton High School, and then went on to much better things. Glad to have you in here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we ran into you at the ball game the other night, but you grew up in Hampton playing football. Was that the only sport you played?
No, I played basketball, baseball in the neighborhood. But other than that, just really track.
We just stayed busy with athletics?
Just AAU. Like, it was I think since the age of 9 till probably about 16, 17, I was busy year round. So from football to basketball to track to AAU, back into football again. It was just a nonstop thing.
Yeah, well, you stayed in shape doing that anyway.
I had no
but
choice.
You played Pop Warner.
Yes.
And who did you play for?
I played for Phoebus. I started off at Wise Thomas, played for Phoebus because I moved, and then I went back to Wise Thomas.
Who were some of the teammates and some of your coaches?
A lot of them. Coach Sanifel, Coach Tillery, who died. Purvis Tillery.
Purvis played basketball for me at Center Junior High School.
Yeah, they started me playing. Like, it was one of those weird things because back then, registration $35. You had to pay for equipment, and they asked me did I want to play, and I was just like, yeah. They was like, okay. They gave me equipment. They gave me what they had, and I used to go out there and watch my cousin play. So
who was your cousin?
Myron Small, my first cousin, and we went there, and he's like, you want to play? I'm like, yeah. And I literally, because basketball has always been my first love, and I just stepped on the field, and I was just good. It just came naturally to me. So I always thank them, like Will Moffitt, Coach Sanifel, Coach Carl, the twins, Coach Maurice. Those are people who started me playing where I really started.
So now, you're talking about football, how good you were there. Basketball had to help you some with the lateral movement and all that. Had to help you, especially when you're running the ball.
Yeah, from the basketball, I used to have this thing. I wrote a letter probably when I was 8 to my aunt. I was like, when I make it to the NBA, I'm going to buy you this, that, and 4. She still has it to this day.
How about that?
And now, I think I was tall at an early age, and then, I don't know, my dad's like 6'2", 225, 230.
You didn't make it that tall.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm going to get 6'1", 6'2", I'll have a shot. Then I just stopped growing. So it was one of those things, but I always still had the fortitude to still go forward. But basketball has always been there. But it definitely helped me quickness, lateral move. I still do that to this day as part of training, just to stay in shape. Basketball shape and football shape is two totally different things. Whereas football, you run for an average of 3-4 seconds. Basketball is just this constant back and forth. So.
But now, after playing in the rec league and all, then you went to Phoebus High School your first 2 years, and Bill D was your quarterback, and that was in 97?
Yeah, 97.
97. Talk a little bit about that transition, because you're going from rec league, which is kind of intense, but not as intense as when you get to the high school level.
Well, Wise Thomas, what they did, they told me, because I feel like I was ahead of the curve in a sense, from a physically standpoint, because I was physically bigger than a lot of people, and they told me I could have went from intermediates and went straight to JV, and it was like, look, if you play 1 year juniors, you're gonna play varsity. They said you just need that one more year, and I was like, I didn't want to, because like my aspiration always set high. I wanted to go straight to right now and just show what I can do, and I took the advice, and that's the year I won my championship that year. We played at Darling Stadium. I actually ran the game with a touchdown. I'll never forget it. But and after going from there, I went straight to varsity, and I started as a quarterback.
As a ninth grader.
Yeah, I started as a ninth grader.
And so the coaches were right. That one more year gave you the chance.
It gave me the mental toughness. Just physically, it gave me another year to really hone my skills, and I went right in. And it was one of those things where it was just easy.
What position were you playing?
I played quarterback. Played running back, played safety, played corner then. So I wasn't as active. I mean, I played, but I wasn't doing it as the years went on. I did more, obviously, but we had a lot of seniors. That's from Kelsey, a lot of Gavin Walls, a lot of those guys were there. So it was definitely a senior Latin team there. Right.
Now, when you went to Phoebus, Bill D was coaching. But now, did he coach the backs, or did you have somebody else coach the backs?
Running backs. Well, Coach Tyndall coached the quarterback, who's a baseball coach over there. So he definitely helped me.
Tyndall.
Yeah, he helped me out a lot. Coach D, he just oversaw everything. It was just
thing,
so.
And then you transferred to Hampton as 11th and 12th grader. and playing for Mike Smith. How do you compare the two? They're both very intense.
Yeah.
That's a tough
yeah,
one.
because it's funny because like coming, it's a question I know people have always wanted to ask. Why'd you transfer this, that, and the fourth, and what was the difference? And the thing for me, I like Bill D. Going to Phoebus helped me. I mean, because I'm homegrown. I'm from Phoebus, and
Right.
growing up, I wanted to beat Hampton. Hampton was, and a lot of people didn't like it, but you had to respect this tradition and what they've done. Coach Smith, what they've done, not only in the city or the state, but countrywide. Coach Smith was one of the very few coaches who have 400 plus victories, one of the winners high schools, and he's been doing what 40 something. I want to say like it's been a very long time.
Been for a long time,
Yeah,
but
so
he's got over 430 some wins. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but it was night and day really. I mean, the intensity and the passion was there, but I always told Coach Smith, he always reminded me of like Bobby Bowden in a sense. Like he had this edge to him, like there was a seriousness about it, but he just had this edge to him where it was like it was funny, but it was serious at the same time, and he's a legend in his own right.
Well,
so.
you got a chance to play for two good coaches. There's no doubt about that. Then at Hampton, you did pretty good. I know at Phoebus you were 6-5 and 9-2. Then at Hampton, you guys 12-1 and 11-2 or something like that. So I mean, you had some great ball games that you can, a lot of people never get to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this guy got to play for two great coaches, had some great records. But then you start the recruiting process.
Mm-hmm.
A little different. Talk about the recruiting process.
I started getting letters early, so that probably early as I think my very first letter was from Michigan State. I want to say first. I started getting a little bit here sophomore
Right.
year, got a little bit more. The recruiting it was just exciting getting letters from
Somebody wants me.
Yeah. So it wasn't. I was just getting letters that I know they just sent out to everybody. I was just excited just to be on somebody's list.
Mailing list.
So what was exciting me, and then you start to get as the years went on, I started getting the handwritten ones. Yeah, Carlos, start your game. Then they start coming in. They want to see you and visiting. So, I mean, for me it was good. And at the same time, I didn't come up really. Go to college on a scholarship. Like free, like it wasn't, and then about sophomore, junior year, that's when it really, and I was like, I can really use this talent to, to open up other doors.
So you took some trips. Where did you take your trips to?
With the UVA, Michigan, Georgia, and Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. And you ended up at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. It's a funny story.
What got you there?
I've always been a Michigan fan since I was a kid. The big house, Charles Woodson, Tom Brady, like all these guys. I've always been huge fan of just the tradition. It's a football factory. Good school academically.
Well, they got $100,000 people they can put in the stands for crying out loud.
It's fun. It's not as loud as you think it would be, but like I've always been a child who this tradition, the tradition there.
Right.
But I went on my visit. I actually missed a basketball game to go on my visit, and I bought a hat and everything. I was ready to come in. They was like, look, Coach Campbell. They called him Soup, which is funny because his last name was Campbell. He said, look, you want the scholarship? You got it. And I'm like, cool. I said, all you got to do is just come and meet. I already know me. I'm setting my mind already as to what I'm going to do. And I go on to speak. That's Lloyd Carr was a coach then. So I go to speak to Lloyd, and he's like, well, Carlos, I like you. That's when I wanted to play both ways. And they were one of the few schools that were going to let me play both ways.
Oh, okay.
So what happened was that I talked to Coach Carr, and he's like, well, we're waiting on a kid out of Detroit to see what he's going to do, if he's going to commit. He said, well, I'll let you know on Monday. And I went, and I wasn't heartbroken, but it was like, all right, I understand the business side of it. It doesn't really matter. This is where I want to go. And the kid ended up being Braylon Edwards. So, what he went there, what he did and stuff like that, on to the NFL. So wasn't mad. Then I took my visit to Georgia. And I've always wanted, SEC is the best conference in the country, so I always wanted to play against the best.
Right.
And that was in Georgia, that was Mark Richt's first year. And I went down there, I loved it. The thing there was that from a football tradition, it's Georgia, it's the Southeast Conference, you're going to compete every year. One thing that kind of stuck in my head there, they did academics on the last day. like right before I left. But even then, I was like, all right, maybe it's just everybody does things differently versus when you compare to Notre Dame. When they come in, they got everything they can prove on paper. Like their presentation is bar none probably the best in the country. And as a parent, you love to see that.
Right.
Yeah, my mom didn't like how they handled the situation. They kind of backdoored her in a way. But the coach said, I would have went there. Coach said something. He said something smart. And I was like, well, I said, I'm the top athlete in the nation. I don't need y'all. I have all the schools. And it just left a sour taste in my mouth. And after that, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to stay in-state. Right. Because I felt like I wanted to really see what I was made of, test myself, and not because it's so easy to come home.
Other athletes from other parts of the country.
It was just that, but just from personally, like, because when you go to Virginia, it's so easy. If something goes wrong, I can go home. And I didn't want that crutch. You know,
didn't want to be able to.
Yeah, I also didn't want my mom to pop up either. She'd be up every weekend, so. I didn't want that crutch, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I was like, well, should I open Recruitment back up, tell people? And I was like, well. And it was funny, my grandmother died in '98, sophomore year, when I was at Phoebus, and that affected me a lot more than a lot of people. I have a tattoo on me, on my arm, but I was sleeping in her house, and she came to me in my sleep. Like, it was the weirdest thing ever, and she was like, because one thing my grandma used to always teach me, and she was like, pushed me hard on academics, and I was hard set on I wanted an academic scholarship. I didn't want to be the cliche, your typical athlete who just could run fast, jump high, hit. You know, I didn't want to be that. So I wanted to kind of change it up. And one thing she used to always tell me, like, if you can execute it here, you can master it here. So that's something that's always stuck with me. And she's like, well, like, they could take your family, your money, your arms, your legs, but the one thing they can't take from you is your mind. You know, so that's your biggest tool, that's your biggest weapon. Nobody can take knowledge from you. Nobody can stop you from learning.
Right.
So I really was on this academic thing. Then reality set in. I was like, well, I've known people who have 4.0s and everything and still have to pay for school. So I was like, well, I have this gift, this talent. I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. And she came to me in my sleep, and I knew it was Notre Dame because, you know, Notre Dame, well, they're on TV every week, you know, great tradition, they're iconic. Yeah, so, basically. And football doesn't work out. You're looking at an alumni and a degree that can carry you 20, 25 years post-college, so.
Yeah. Well, you graduated, when you played, what did you end up playing at Notre Dame? What position?
First 2 years, I played as a freshman. First 2 years I played receiver, and then I switched over to cornerback. Okay. I wanted to go to free safety, but I would have played quicker. Fast way to the field was to play corner, so I played corner my last 2 years.
All right, and you got your degree in?
Computer application and sociology.
Computer application and sociology. Then you go down to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I had a really good pro day. A lot of scouts were there. I went from basically not being known to, oh, this guy can get drafted 6th or 7th round just based on my pro day. And Mike Tomlin, who's from Denton with the William & Mary, he was a DB coach at Tampa Bay, and he always tried to help out with area guys, local guys. He tried to bring one or two guys just to get them a look, and he brought me in, and they saw the tape like they saw, and they brought me in, and I came in on it was more like a tryout, a rookie tryout, and they cut by 1 or 2 guys for me. I came in, did what I needed to do, and they signed me. So I'm in here signing a contract, looking at the numbers like, okay. Like, it was probably one of the other, next to being the #1 athlete in the nation, probably the next best thing. So that to happen to me. So it was definitely a blessing. Hands down the best coach I've ever had. He's a player coach, but he relates life to football at the same time. He's a straight shooter. Carlos, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And as a player, that's what you want. You want a coach. You might not like everything that he has to say, but you're going to respect what he says and stuff like that. So.
All right. #1 player in the country. What was that like?
I didn't even know. To be honest, like I always wanted to do everything. You know, like I said, I've always shot for the stars, so I wanted to do everything. I wanted to play, like, I think probably my senior year, quarterback, running back, receiver, punter, kicker, kick returner. Like, I think somebody wrote something on the paper like he does everything but drive the bus to the game. So. It was definitely one of my accomplishments to be one of the best, and I just happened to be the #1 guy in the country. Like, there's this thing when I was playing in the team in Philly, they was like, Carl, you know one recruit in the country? I mean, athlete? I'm like, yeah. Bring back some tape. I'm like, bring back some tape. We don't believe you. I'm like, I said, Google it. You know, so they look it up. And so I went to Coach Smith last week. I got some tape. I texted him, look, I got some tape for y'all. So I recorded a video on TV and I was like, look, #1 cat. And they was like, we don't know if it's you. So it's one of those things, but definitely a big accomplishment.
Talk a little bit about the athletes. You and I were talking earlier about this, about the athletes from the 757 area.
Wow, you can go on and on about this. Coming up for me, like,
who was the guy that got your attention first?
Got my attention first.
When you were coming up, you're playing ball. Who did you look at?
Probably Iverson.
Iverson.
Obviously, yeah.
Because he played both. He football. Then that's what you did. You did both.
But he was also good at baseball as well. But I think that was one of my first high school games I went to was Bethel and Phoebus game.
Right.
And even then, you know, that's back when they had like Walter Ford, like all these guys, and I'm like, who is this little skinny kid? This skinny kid just shredding these guys. This is Hampton, and I think Hampton ended up winning, but I always remember him just standing out, you know, just amongst, and he was a basketball guy, you know, but he was probably the first to catch my attention, because that was one of my very first games that I went to see at Darling Stadium.
What about Ronald Curry?
Ronald Curry, well, I mean, he's one of those guys like he was touched by God like here. It's great. Like it's very. I always probably won't be a lot of guys that come through here like that who were just blessed and he was just gifted and it was just an air around him that I've been like my cousin Bobby Blizzard played with him, so Bobby was my cousin, so I was always around him, and even just being around him was kind of just like, and it was just a confidence and there was an arrogance. But not in a bad way. It was just like he takes what he does serious, and one of the greatest, if not probably, to come out of. Everybody knows, like when I went to college. Oh, Ronald Curry, let me show. So I'm showing tape. They're like, I heard everybody did this with punt return. I'm like,
well, how was it like for you to follow him? I mean, was there pressure, or did you even think about that?
No, I always tried to carve my own. Like, but of course, anytime you play quarterback, even Marcus Higgins, and I played against Marcus and Pop Warner, and me and him used to battle Pop Warner, but Marcus I was watching some tape. I watched the Culpeper game like last week and some other games, and just watching Marcus. Marcus kind of gets lost there in a sense because everything's been around the curve, but Marcus was a very, very, very good quarterback. And then you had Tyrod follow him as well, but it was some, of course, like everybody, the standard is always around the curve. He did this, he did that, and I try not to get caught up. And it came, but I try not to get caught up in that.
All right. Well, we're going to kind of wrap this up because, well, first of all, you left the Tampa Bay, you became a personal trainer, and now you're in transition and still got an open door to continue to play some. But the experiences that you got from these people, from watching all these guys from the 757 area, and you can look at them and know that you're part of that group. That's got to make you feel special.
Yeah, just coming, I think now I went to the high school game and kids asked me questions. I'm like, I'm really getting old. Like it was 90, 98, 99. I was just out here running this field. So definitely great, man. Like, I mean, because a lot of, like Al Iverson used to come into open gym during the summer at Hampton High School. And we used to play with those guys, and that was been the biggest thing. I try to come back as much as possible. And I'm going to become more active with the guys and do it because, you know, Hampton's young right now.
Yeah.
You know, so I think what'll get that going is just guys coming back who, you know, there was a standard there was a tradition there, and it meant something to put on that jersey. I leave, go to college, play pro ball, and I come back, and Hampton has won Phoebus has won 5 or 6 state championships. So I'm like, what's going on? But it's good because the state champion is coming from the city of Hampton, so.
Right. You're living here in
no, I'm just here I come and visit.
Okay.
I was in Atlanta.
Are you in New York? Is that where you are?
That's why I'm end up moving there.
That's
but I'm in Atlanta.
Go.
I still have stuff there. Once I go back there, I move from there. Then I'll be heading to New York.
So what are you doing now?
Well, now other than the football stuff. I'm about to get back into to training. Commercials. I did an Under Armour commercial. I did something for ESPN. Transition into that, commercials. Probably getting some acting, modeling, and stuff like that. I want to end up doing camps around here, helping little kids, and probably get into motivational speaking, just spreading the word. Just things that because I have a story, you know. I didn't have the going from all of this to, you know, everybody had these expectations of me, and I don't feel like I've let them down. It's just some people have to take the long road. Some people get there quicker than others, and you know, just share my story, what I went through, the ups and downs, the mistakes I've seen people make. So just really start giving back.
I appreciate you coming in. I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Carlos Campbell. I'm your host, Bob Hentz. Till next time.